Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. How's everyone's summer so far? Good? Hot? It's been extremely hot in the US. We've had intense heat waves. And this summer feels especially hot because it's not just the temperature, um, but it has been persistently humid. And the water element seems to be overwhelming. In July, earlier, I mean, just 2 weeks ago, we had a devastating flood in Texas that took over 100 people's lives. So, according to Chinese metaphysics, 2025 is a year governed by two opposing forces, fire and water. These elements naturally clash, and that conflict is playing out not just in geopolitics, but in nature itself. Um, In China, the fire-water clash is unfolding on an entirely different scale, much larger than the United States. The country has been hit by record-breaking heat and devastating floods at the same time. Since mid-March, China has experienced extreme heat. 152 national uh, observation centers recorded temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius, which is about 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And by early June, eastern provinces like Anhui, Hubei, Henan, and Zhejiang were already baking under 37 to 39 degrees Celsius, 90 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, with some areas topping 40 degrees. Then in mid to late July, things got worse. Xi'an hit 42 to 46 degrees Celsius. That's 108 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And in Turpan, Tu'erfan, or Turpan, Xinjiang, and Mangya Lake in Qinghai, temperatures soared to, do you know how high it is? Almost 49 degrees Celsius. That's 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And just as the heat reached those extremes, waves of flooding began to hit. In April, heavy spring rains triggered urban flooding in Guangdong and Guangxi. In May, Guizhou experienced flash floods that swept away bridges and vehicles, killing at least 5 people. Guangxi, Hunan, and Jiangxi entered flood season early. River levels rose and homes were inundated. By June, the Pearl River Basin in Guangdong suffered a major flood. Cities like Guangzhou and Foshan were underwater, schools were closed, and subway lines flooded. And then Hunan, Jiangxi, and Fujian faced heavy rainfall and evacuations. By July, extreme flooding struck Beijing, Hebei, Shanxi, Shandong, Liaoning, and again Guizhou. And in Beijing alone, more than 80,000 people were evacuated, and at least 30 people, 30 elderly, died. Now, those are just the official numbers. The real death toll is likely much higher. And Chinese authorities always blame Mother Nature, but the truth is China's dam system, its vast hydropower infrastructure, is deeply complicit. So today I want to talk about first the problematic statistics on Chinese hydro power facilities. I want to show you what those numbers reveal. And then we'll analyze Beijing's flooding. Last but not least, we'll talk about the Yapo Dam on the Tibetan Plateau, because that is a hot topic in geopolitics. So first things first, let's talk about the problematic statistics on China's hydropower facilities. Now, China has more dams than any other country in the world. In fact, half of the world's reservoirs are in China, and 6 of the 10 tallest dams are in China too. And before the Communist Party came to power in 1949, China had only about 20 reservoirs. They were mostly built by the Japanese during their occupation. And then by 1950, there were just 22 dams in China. That's a very small slice out of the 5,268 dams worldwide. So China only had 22 out of them. Actually, I have slides. Where did the slides go? Here we go. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, these are the dreadful floods in China. Yeah, this is lately in July. And this is the different regions in Beijing. Okay, so here, this is the chart I want you to focus on. So you see, by 1950, there were only 22 dams in China. By 1973, just in 2 decades, China had constructed 170,000 dams, but they're mostly small ones. And a second wave began after the Three Gorges Dam were approved. Then China started to focus on mega dams and giant reservoirs. And then since 2000, China has doubled its reservoir capacity, adding over 470 billion cubic meters. By the end of 2020, China had 98,566 dams and reservoirs, with a combined storage capacity of 930 or 931 billion cubic meters. So you see, between the year 1973 and 2000, the number of dams were reduced, but the capacity increased significantly. But if you look carefully, in 2025, during the National People's Congress, Water Resource Minister Li Guoying, where did he go? Oh, I don't have a picture of him. That's okay. So the minister in charge of water resources revealed some stunning numbers. He said that in 2025, China has 94,877 dams. And if you compare that number to the number 5 years ago, China lost 3,689 dams in just 5 years, and that's for 4% of the total. And that doesn't even account for the newly built dams, meaning the real loss could be even greater, meaning the number of old dams that are gone could be much higher. Hold on one second. I just want to have a sip of water. Scratchy throat. And what's even more alarming, if you look at the numbers, flood control storage capacity dropped to 185.6 cubic meters. And that's 1/5 of what it was in 2020. I have it on the next slides, yeah. So in 2020, China's total flood control storage capacity was 931 cubic. And then it's being dropped to just 1/5 of that in 5 years. So here's the question. How did China lose 4% of its dams, but 80% of its flood control capacity in 5 years? China has been, that's the question raised by one of China's top hydrologist, or is it hydrologist? Yeah, hydrologist, Mr. Wang Weiluo, who now lives in Germany. So that's the question he brought up. He was the one actually who presented these numbers. So he said, how did China lose 4% of its dams? That number is already dramatic, but 80% of its flood control capacity in 5 years? Now, if you think about it, China has been building larger and larger dams. If anything, they should increase the flood control capacity, right? They might get rid of some older dams and replace them with the newer ones, but the newer ones are at much higher capacity. So it's understandable that the total number of dams is reducing, but the total capacity, flood control capacity, shouldn't be, even when they replace the old dams with new ones, because the new ones are mega dams. So if you really think about it, the answer, there's only just one answer, in my opinion, because those dams were never used for flood control in the first place. These dams were meant to manage flood control, power generation, irrigation, transport, and tourism. But most of them have been used for economic gain, for hydropower, fish farms, and tourism. That's why even though China has been building many dams and increasing capacity, the country has been losing flood management capacity. Dams are supposed to release water before flood season so they can store water during floods. But in China, local governments often refuse to release water in dry seasons because they don't want to lose the economic benefits. So they gamble. If it doesn't rain much, they're fine. But if heavy rain comes, they're forced to suddenly discharge massive volumes downstream, turning what could have been a manageable flood into a man-made disaster. And these dams have become ticking time bombs, poorly maintained, mismanaged, and dangerously operated. And they turn annual flood seasons into full-blown crisis. And now let's back to that 4% dam loss figure. It's likely worse. Once you subtract the newly added dams, the actual loss of old dams may be closer. It could be much higher. So what happened to those thousands of dams that were gone? I just want to give you some reference. Well, I'll give you the reference later on. Well, actually, Xi Jinping personally acknowledged this problem. On August 19th, 2024, let me go back, stay on this page. China's Ministry of Water Resources, together with 5 other agencies, issued a directive titled Strengthening the Safety Management of Reservoir Dams. It relayed a rare instruction from Xi Jinping, who acknowledged 3 major risks. 1, China has too many reservoirs. 2, too many tall dams. And 3, too many dangerous aging structures. This was the first time China's top leader publicly admitted the public security risks associated with these dangerous aging structures. Some experts believe that the 3689 dams lost between 2020 and 2025 either collapsed or failed during poor construction and age and poor maintenance. If true, that number is higher than all dam collapses recorded over 67 years. So let me give you some numbers. So this is public information from the year 1952 to 2021. So in a span of 67 years, China officially recorded 33,558 dam collapses. That's an average of 52 dam collapses per year, with a failure rate of 5.3 per 10,000 dams. That's already 5 times higher than the international safety standard of 1 per 10,000. But think about it, 3,600 dams disappeared in just 5 years, right? Versus 3,500 dam collapses in 67 years. Where did they go? That number is problematic. So that's why the Chinese hydrologist, here we go, Mr. Wang Weiluo, he's very well known. This is an expert on Three Gorges Dam. So he calls the number extremely disturbing. So it strongly suggests that the number of dams that have failed in the past 5 years is very high, is alarmingly high. Now, China has a long history of dam disasters. In August 1963, 319 dams failed in the High River Basin. In 1973, 10 years later, over 550 dams reportedly collapsed in a single year. In August 1975, 62 dams, including the Banqiao Dam, collapsed in Henan province, killing an estimated 240,000 people and displaced 11 million. The Discovery Channel later ranked this dam collapse the number one man-made technological disaster in world history. And since Xi Jinping took office, unannounced emergency discharges from dams have become common practice, causing floods every year for the reason I described above. So now let's talk about the massive the massive flooding, the devastating flooding in Beijing right now. It wasn't just the result of heavy rain. It was largely man-made, a disaster driven by mismanagement of the Miyun Reservoir, which is the capital city's main water source. Do I have a picture of Miyun? Yeah. Now, over the years, the Miyun Dam hasn't just been filling up from its natural sources, the Chaohe and the Baihe rivers, but also from the CCP's so-called south to north water diversion project. This massive project moves water from the south to the north. So in this case, in the case of the Miyun Reservoir, it moves water from the Danjiangkou Reservoir in southern China all the way to Beijing using gravity. And Danjiangkou sits at 170 meters above sea level, which is about 120 meters higher than Beijing's average elevation. So thanks to this height difference, water flows naturally northbound into the capital. It made sense, right? But here's where it gets strange, very strange. After reaching Beijing's Tuanshan Lake, this water from the south, somehow the Chinese officials decided to pump that same water gets pumped uphill into the Miyun Reservoir. They want to store this southern water into the Miyun Reservoir. But the problem is the Miyun Reservoir is over 100 kilometers away from the city, and it's uphill. It's 133 meters higher than Beijing. So the Chinese officials built a 103 kilometers long system of channels and pipelines powered by 9 pump stations that pushed this water that came from the south uphill by 133 meters into this Miyun Reservoir. Now, so think about it. The water flows naturally downhill, then it's forced back uphill. So it's kind of reverse engineering, right? But that's how China's GDP keeps growing, through these inefficient, wasteful mega projects. However, the problem just doesn't, if it's just wasteful, it's a minor issue. But this has created a problem that has already become out of control. So since this reverse transfer or uphill transfer began in 2015, and from that point on, Miyun Reservoir's water level the water volume that it holds skyrocketed. And I want to show you the numbers. Okay, here we go. In 2013, the reservoir held just 800 million cubic meters of water. That's before the project. Okay, the project started in 2015. So 2013 was before this southward and northbound project. And then by 2018, that number hit 2.2 billion cubic meters. 2019, it reached 2.6 billion. 2021, it reached 3.6 billion cubic meter. And by that year, the water level has reached 155.3 meters. That's already dangerously high. And then in October 2024, it reached 3.58 billion cubic meters. And then on July 29th, 2025, just before the floods, Miyun hit a record height of 3.61 billion cubic meters with a water level of 155.52 meters. Now, here's the problem. The reservoir's flood warning level is 150 meters. The maximum safety limit during flood season is 152 meters. The top of the dam is only 160 meters. So by late July, Miyun, the reservoir was running 3.5 meters above its flood season safety limit. So when the storm hit, officials had no choice. They had to discharge water rapidly or risk the dam's failure. But that emergency discharge triggered downstream flood disaster, destroying homes, infrastructure, and likely claiming far more lives than officially reported. And it gets worse. This dam was Miyun Dam. This very dam that's responsible for the capital city's water resources was built during the Great Leap Forward period. And it was a time known for poor construction standards. And during the 1976 Tangshan earthquake, a landslide nearly caused the dam to collapse. So it's said that the main dam is over 100 meters higher than Tiananmen Square. If it were breached, floodwaters could reach 2 meters deep in Tiananmen Square itself. So, in short, Miyun did not do what a reservoir is supposed to do: mitigate flood risk or reduce peak runoff. Instead, it released nearly all the incoming floodwater in a compressed window of time, intensifying the destruction downstream. So the real root of the July flood disaster in Beijing, in suburban Beijing, I mean, Miyun is 100 kilometers away from Beijing. So that area is severely flooded, and several regions around that. So the real root of that flood lies in years of overfilling the reservoir with water from the south to north diversion project. So officials treated the rising water levels as a political and economic win, because that's an indication of their local GDP index. So they completely ignore the grave safety risks. And when a dam is full to the brim before flood season even begins, it's no longer a protective buffer. It becomes a liability, right? A disaster waiting to happen. But under the CCP's rule, there's no accountability and no respect for human life. The only thing the officials know when disaster strikes is to lie and cover up. And that's not the worst nightmare, or that's not the worst situation in China. Now, I must tell you that China's tallest dams are concentrated in the Tibetan Plateau and surrounding regions, some of the most geologically unstable places on Earth. These areas are prone to earthquakes, landslides, rockfalls, and mudslides. And Chinese geological experts have long warned about the dangers of building massive dams in such volatile terrain. But has the CCP ever listened to experts and respected science? I don't think so. It's now embarking on its most ambitious and most dangerous dam project ever. And on July 19th, 2025, the Chinese government announced the official launch of the lower Yarlung Tsangpo, that's how we say it, Yarlung hydropower project. In China, it's known as the Yaxi project. And this project is going to be built in Yingchi, Tibet. And according to Xinhua, the project involves building 5 cascade hydropower stations with a total investment of 1.2 trillion yuan, which is about 165 billion US dollars. What caught everyone's attention was this. Aside from the eye-popping figure, no technical data, no installed capacity, no projected output was released. This lack of transparency goes against the global engineering norms, especially for a project of this size. And only China's Caijing magazine mentioned that insiders estimated the project could reach 3 times the capacity of the Three Gorges Dam. But again, that number has not been confirmed officially. So people wonder, people want to know how large is the project? And this gentleman, who has been following these projects closely, he said that this number originated from the former chairman of Power Construction Corporation of China. His name is Yang Zhiyong. He said back in 2020, Mr. Yan, no, I'm sorry, not Yang, Yan Zhiyong. Mr. Yan claimed that the Yaxi project could generate 300 billion kilowatt hours of electricity annually, which is about 3 times more than the Three Gorges. Now, this raised a fundamental question. Why build such an enormous dam now when China has more electricity than it can use? Because if you look at China's where's my other slide? I have some slides. Oh yeah, here it is. So according to the 2024 China Electricity Market Development Report, China generated 10 trillion kilowatts hour of electricity in that year, but only used 9.85 trillion, leaving a surplus of 240 billion kilowatts hour. So to put that in perspective, the year before, in 2023, the Three Gorges Dam produced 80.3 billion kilowatts hour. This means that the 2024 surplus alone was 3 times greater than the Three Gorges' entire annual output. And that's not all. In 2024, 6 of China's biggest hydropower plants produced a combined 296 billion kilowatts hour. So nearly all of that electricity was excess, if you really think about it. Or, 90% of that, or 85% of the combined output of China's 6 largest hydropower plants were excess capacity. They were not used. So here's the question. China doesn't have an electricity shortage. Why does Beijing start this project that's costing them 1.2 trillion yuan? What is it about? And according to Mr. Wang, it's political. The reason is political. The Yaxi project is Xi Jinping's personal initiative designed to reassert China's dominance in global hydropower. Under the CCP, dam building has never been just about utility, it's about status. The Three Gorges Dam was designed not according to domestic need, but to outdo a giant dam on the Brazil in South America, on the border of Brazil. It's called Itapu. I have a picture of that. Yeah, here it is. For years, China's Three Gorges and then this Itapu Dam competed for the title of the world's largest dam. Before 2014, Itapu consistently generated more electricity, but in 2014, the Three Gorges overtook it. And so actually look, that's their comparison. So China's Three Gorges produced almost 99 billion kilowatts hour versus the 88 billion. And then Itapu Dam regained the lead in 2015 and 2016. And then from 2017 on, the Three Gorges was back on top. But just as China settled into its #1 spot, Africa has built another giant dam. It's called the Grand Inga Dam. Here it is, the Grand Inga Dam. And this dam is located on the Congo River. It will feature 6 dams with 44 million kilowatts of capacity and an expected output of 300 billion kilowatt hour annually. And that will leave the Three Gorges in the dust. And so the primary goal of this new project in the Tibetan plateau is to defend China's 2 world records in hydropower. But this political ambition comes at an enormous environmental and geological cost. The project is located at the eastern Himalayan tectonic knot, one of the Earth's most active seismic zones. And the main tunnel will run 50 kilometers, cutting across 12 active fault lines with a maximum burial depth of 1,200 meters, which is equivalent to digging 400 floors underground. At that depth, engineers face intense pressure, and not just pressure, they face rock bursts and massive deformations. So it's a recipe for disaster. And despite all this, there was no public environmental review, no expert debate. In October 2022, a Chinese engineer named Fan Xiao published an article arguing that the geology made the project unworkable. But his article was quickly censored. And earlier that year, another Chinese scientist, his name is Zhao Jingdong, also warned that this project or this region, the Yarlung Tsangpo region, is a global biodiversity hotspot. It's the deepest canyon on Earth. It's actually even deeper than the U.S. Grand Canyon. It supports thousands of plants and animal species, and many found nowhere else on the planet. But the CCP dismissed all that warnings. And Mr. Wang said that this project violates China's own environmental laws, including its environmental protection law, Qinghai Tibet Plateau Ecological Protection Law, and nature reserve regulations. It also certainly violates international treaties like the Convention on Biological Diversity and the World Heritage Convention. So, and he also said that the Himalayas are a young and rising mountain range. Building anything here is inherently dangerous. Some dams were built in earthquake zones, but that was before we understood the risks. One design flaw or one earthquake, and this could become the catastrophe of the century. Now, if you remember the history of how the Three Gorges Dam was built, there was a renowned Chinese scientist, his name is Huang Wanli, who spent his lifetime opposing the Three Gorges Dam. He predicted 12 major consequences. So far, 11 of them have come true. The final one, which is that the Three Gorges Dam would have to be blown up. That's the only one that has not happened yet. So, with all that said, I want to ask the question again. Why does Xi Jinping still push for the massive project like this one? The answer lies in local politics. These large state-sponsored infrastructure projects are a gold mine for local officials and large SOEs, and even the military, because a project of this size is often aided or carried out by the military. So it's a great opportunity for them. It's a milk cow for corruption. It's an opportunity for kickbacks, bribes, and corruption. And Xi Jinping knows this. He needs local support to maintain control. And projects like this are his way of buying loyalty, even if it puts entire region and the ecosystem at a great risk. So that's why people think, despite all the protest and opposition and the lack of due diligence, CCP is still pushing this project forward. And in fact, I heard that this project started way before the official ceremony that took place in July. Actually, CCP quietly started it a while ago. They started it without any noise to avoid protests from India and Bangladesh. So the project is already underway. And just days ago, I heard that both the Forbidden City and Zhongnanhai, the CCP leadership compound, were flooded. And you know that the Forbidden City has stood dry for over 600 years because it has built a very elaborate drainage system. It doesn't flood. So seeing the Forbidden City underwater struck many Chinese as an ominous sign, is a symbol of a dynastic change. So with that said, I wrap up my talk tonight. I hope this is a lot of information, a lot of useful information for you. I just want to mention that since we're talking about the Forbidden City, I released a video in Leisrealtalk channel tonight, just a while ago. It's about the life, a day in the life of a Chinese emperor. I thought it's fascinating to see how they actually spend their day. So it's it's a video that I released this week. And I know a lot of people are interested in how the Chinese emperor or empress interacted with the massive number of concubines and consorts, in the Forbidden Palace. I am going to do that in the next program because the video will be very long. So this one is just about their daily schedule, mostly their work schedule. And then the next week's program, I'll talk about how the emperor managed to maintain relationships with so many women in the palace. So stay tuned. All right, so that's all for tonight. Let me see. Okay, let me see what questions, comments people have for me. Oh, by the way, you probably have already heard that the CCP held a Politburo meeting on the last day of July, and they announced that the fourth plenum will take place in October. They didn't announce any date. There's no specific date. Um, and so we know that it's going to be in October. Some people argue that from the announcement, they think that it looks like Xi Jinping's power is safe until from now till October. Some people think that he won in this round of the battle. Other people believe that it's still too early to tell. So yeah, but I want to study it a little bit more to see what will really come out of that announcement. Yeah. So maybe I'll talk about it over the weekend. But it's interesting that they held the Politburo meeting the day after they finished the trade talk with the U.S. Right, and then the extension, the 90-day extension of the trade war will uh, will go into October. So if the fourth plenum will actually take place at the end of this trade talk extension. So yeah. Okay. All right, let me see. Any questions, comments, super stickers? Oh, boycott China. Hi, lovely lady. Do you think China pouring more cement from 2009, 2013 than the US has its entire history contributed to our recent heat waves? China pouring more cement from that long ago, from 10 years ago, than the US has its entire history contributed to our recent heat waves. I do not know. I wouldn't think so. Do you think that the China's pouring more cement 10 years, a decade, more than a decade ago would affect our I'm not a I I'm not very knowledgeable about geology um or the environmental science. That's a good question to look into. Maybe I'll find out. I'll keep that in mind. But thank you for the donation. Thank you. That's a good question. I've never thought about it. Okay. Yeah, it's a year of fire and water. Fire and water. Okay, let's see. Oh, here's one from Howie Brown. You are a treasure of information regarding the goings on in China. Thank you for your service to the world. Well, thank you. I try. I try. I feel very good about doing this program because it has been on my mind because there's just so many floods um, in China. I mean, throughout 2025, it started a few months ago, it has never stopped. And you wonder, is that really Mother Nature or something else? So when I saw all these numbers, it really, and people don't talk about these numbers. Yeah. And Mr. Wang, I must say, Mr. Wang Weiluo did a wonderful job keeping track of all of the latest development in China's hydropower projects. So he has been studying that. So he's a good source for information on that subject. Okay, let's see. All right. And yeah. Uh, okay. No question. No question. Oh, here's a question forwarded by Chris. Wuhan Institute of Virology. Ooh, what a name. Can this reservoir even hold all the water or does it spill over in floods? I don't think so because they're not designed. See, the Chinese don't follow it. I shouldn't say the Chinese. The Chinese under the CCP do not like to follow rules. They like to always break rules. So when a dam is 160 meters tall, and when they set the safety threshold at 152 meters, I mean the Chinese like to go over that. They think, between 152 and 160, I still have 8 meters. Yeah, 155 is safe. I still have 5 meters from going over. But, and this is like the day before they got the heavy rain. And then I don't know if they ignored the weather forecast and then the heavy rain came and they realized, oh, I can't do this. I need to discharge water. Um, so, if you really think about it, in this communist culture, I do not think the CCP is capable of running a civilized society. They're incapable to run a modern city because to run an elaborate, well-developed modern city, you need precision or you need mentality you need rules and regulations and precision. You need to have people who are good at following procedures. But the CCP culture destroys that mentality. Nobody wants to follow the rules. Nobody respects the rules. Everybody tries to cut corners. And that's why they said that, the fecal water that happened in Hangzhou. Remember, they said that they found feces in water, in drinking water, in tap water, and they said it has to do with how the sewage system and then the water pipes were built under the underground. Because design is one thing, construction is another. The construction teams do not follow the design blueprint, and when they build the infrastructure, they build it however they wanted to. So when you open the underground infrastructure and try to do repair or maintenance work, it's not what you see on the blueprint. You can never figure out how they are laid out down there. So you could make mistake, yeah. And they may not follow standard and procedures in using the right type of pipe for sewage and water. So that could create all kinds of problems. So I think the Chinese cities run a great risk of falling apart because of this CCP mentality. When the CCP still had money, it wasn't a problem because they could use the money to shut people up or to fix the problem. Or people were not lazy because they're well paid, they're well compensated. People had the incentive to follow the rules. Now that the CCP is strapped for money, when people are not properly compensated, then everyone started to cut corners. Maintenance work, there's no maintenance work. So a city will fall apart when that happens. So that's why I think, that kind of a mindset, the mindset of never following rules, never respecting law and order, always trying to cut corners, will push the Chinese society back to the medieval years, because they're incapable of maintaining a modern city. Right? How can they? I mean, look at all the recent problems that China has had, the public safety problems that that has been taking the Chinese internet by storms. They're all infrastructure failure. They're all infrastructure failure. So that's just my observation. All right, let's see. Oh, here's Elizabeth Plum. Lay a small gift for all your interesting information. Well, thank you. No gift is too small. I truly appreciate it. All right. Chris has copied the link to my latest video, A Day in the Life of a Chinese Emperor. I do not envy them. I think my life as a YouTuber is much better. um, I'd like to get your opinion once you see my next video. Lei, you should go see a psychiatrist. Should I? Is there something wrong with me? I think I think I'm the last person who needs a psychiatrist. Look, if I have been talking about the most dreadful regime in the world, the most negative subject in the world, still with a smile on my face, with still a sense of humor, I think I'm fine. If you think that I need to see a psychiatrist, I think you may need some help. I hope that's a joke. I take it as a joke. All right. Teal, oh my goodness, this name is extremely long. Teal Ridco blah 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 trader 121. Well, thank you, whoever you are. That's a tremendously long name, and I don't even know how to pronounce it. Something trader. All right, thank you. Stephen Zaluk Music Studio. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, somebody asked Lei, have you been to a psychiatrist? I take that as a joke. No, I have not. Wait a minute. I took that back. I did. After I gave birth to my daughter, I had what's called baby blue. Yeah, postpartum depression or symptoms of that. But I didn't think that was the case. It was just stress. You know, when you're a new mother, you're stressed out. But I think, yeah. So. All right. Prior BT 2000. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Oh, here's Charles Womack. How is Zonghai protected from flooding? It cannot. It cannot be flooded because, I mean, they just, the reason they discharge water in the suburbs, trying to prevent the city from being flooded, but they can't because when you have that much water overflowing in a reservoir that's so close. I mean, it's close. And then when you have such heavy rain, I think they said that Beijing got rain. The amount of rain they got in days equates to the amount that they normally get in a year, or the week. The amount of rain they got in a week is the same as how much they would normally get in a year, because Beijing is a very dry city. It doesn't get rain very much. So yeah, that's the scary part. I don't think they can protect Zhongnanhai from rain, from heavy rain like that. Okay, all right. Someone said, Lei, you need a moderator on the channel. Chris is my moderator. Is everyone behaving? No? All right. I think he's doing a great job. Chris works very hard. Do we have a lot of trolls? Any news about Xi Jinping's mother's funeral? We have not heard anything. We have not heard anything. And she has not reappeared. So nobody knows if she's dead or alive. If she's alive, then they probably will mention her name in some of the news reports. Yeah, but we have not seen that. So nobody knows. You are a brave woman. I try to be courageous. So somebody said, you're quite sane, well-spoken, and talented. Thank you. Okay. All right. I believe so. Okay. All right. Too many trolls in chat. Okay. That's what I figured. All right. Okay, that's all for tonight. We'll end it here. Chris needs help. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I'll talk to Chris afterwards. Thank you very much for joining me. And thank you everyone for giving me super stickers. I'll see you next time. Bye.